All right. I had a thought as we were going through the conditioning, like the classical conditioning and then the operant conditioning. Um, can you summarize just real quickly which one is classical and what's operant and what the difference is between them?
So in classical conditioning, a neutral stimulus takes over a reflex. So that's like social bonding, right? The person that you're bonded to is initially neutral, and then they get all that reflexive love. Yeah, they take over that. And then operant conditioning is conditioning through reinforcement or giving rewards that the person wants, or um, causing behavior to happen because because things they don't want have been taken away.
So, to encourage behavior, you offer a reward as reinforcement when they do the right thing, and to discourage behavior, you take away reinforcement when
Take
they're
away something nasty.
okay.
If you take away something nasty, that's as good as giving something pleasant.
Okay, okay.
So,
So,
so the idea is, in one case, the behavior is done, and then the environment has an action on the person. In the dog case, the pairing happens before the behavior,
okay, okay.
and they're all going on at the same time.
So, where does intermittent conditioning fit into all this?
Okay, intermittent conditioning is after you do a behavior. And I guess you're bringing that up because of the bonding. So one of the ways sociopaths control people is that they are very irregular in giving a positive response to the person's submissiveness. And so the irregularity of it, and it's usually the time interval. So if they go irregular time intervals, one time you submit and you're nice to them, they'll hand you some morsels, or give you kindness in return. But then
Karma.
there'll be a real long time, and you'll be doing it, and they don't give you any reward. But then finally, when you're about to hit extinction, they give you a reward, and then that causes it to come back stronger. So it's the intermittent nature of that reward. If they rewarded you every time you did it, actually, you wouldn't be as inclined to do it. And that's one of the reasons why normal relationships are not as intense as these abnormal relationships, because in a normal relationship, you kiss somebody every day, or you're kind to somebody all day long. You don't just kind of intermittently dole out the goodies. You're just all the time like that, and so it's a lot less intense.
And this has the effect of making the trauma bond more powerful, correct?
Right. Yep.
Right. So, how do you extinguish or deal with an intermittent reinforcement?
Well, I think it depends. Um you have to be aware that you're being subjected to this. And the easiest thing for me to say is that you get away from the person that's doing this to you. But if that's not possible, then to become very mindful of your urges, and don't seek reinforcement from the person anymore. You can just say, I have a really strong urge to um to please this person, so they'll give me something that I want, that I feel like I need from them, some sort of kindness, some sort of expression of affection. But realize that that's only going to entrap you further. And so try to get yourself not to need or want that from the person anymore. And I think the people that I think are most successful, if they have to stay in relation to one of these people, is just that it's being mindful of this urge and this need, and then training themselves not to try to get it. And if they stay distant, they can actually hopefully prevent, and actually sometimes in situations I'm aware of, the disordered person's actually happy they don't have to be kind or give them, they're just like, hey, I'm fine to ignore you too. But you can't make it obvious that their other person's being ignored, because you have to keep letting them think that you're under their control. So you let them think you're under their control, and you just go about your life, and you try to not want anything connected to them.
And this is also part of like emotional disengagement, I would
Right, that's what
guess.
I'm talking about.
Okay. All right. So we have a comment. I think it's a question of how to deal with dependence. Should be treated as dependence.
All right, so I don't like that word. I've never liked that word, because humans, so when we think about what does it mean to be independent? Well, a grizzly bear is independent. Apart from a mother with cubs, grizzly bears live solitary in the wild, and I think polar bears probably do too. Certain bears. I mean, there are various mammals that live solitary. Humans do not live solitary. So humans have a basic need for touch, a certain amount of touch every day. In fact, there's studies showing that as people age, they get touched less, and it's really a significant cause of death, dying in old age or being unhealthy, because you don't get hugged and touched enough. So we have as much of a need for affection, love, intimacy from others in our lives as we do to eat and breathe. That's not dependence. What happens is, I think people don't realize this, but then when they see someone who's in a relationship with a sociopath, they call that dependence and they pathologize it. Well, it's not the person who needs love that's in the wrong here. It's the person that doesn't know how to love that's in the wrong. So I would say, rather than dependence, it's try to direct your need for love to people who can really supply that need to you reliably. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so then we have also a clarification that how does this work with addiction?
Well, I mean, so the reason why drugs of abuse are addictive is that they stimulate the parts of the brain that are responsible for social bonding.
Mm.
So, love is an addiction. Love is an addiction.
Yeah, and Helen Fisher talks about that.
Mhm.
And essentially, it's important for people to understand that normal love with normal people is an addiction. And it's not wrong to feel love. It's if you have the right person.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not wrong to need that person. The wrong is the 12 to 15% of individuals living among us that are not like us, that are not capable of love. They're only capable of control and power. And so the person that loves them is going to be constantly abused because that person needs love. So then you think, well, does a sociopath need love? I would say, I think my observation of them is and so I'm trying to think, is there scientific evidence beyond just all the ones I've observed? I think there is, but I don't think it's that strong. I think they vary. I think some sociopaths do gain pleasure out of being touched. Some definitely do not. But it seems to be, since there are those that do, and actually, there's a researcher in Poland, her name is Gauda, and I've written back and forth with her. She has determined that the sociopaths she studies, a lot of them have a need for, affection, other people showing them affection. So they seem to vary in that, but it's not, that doesn't mean that they're capable of the full range of caring for another individual. So you could think of them as, their need for affection is akin to the vampire sucking the lifeblood out of somebody else. But some of them, I think, are truly indifferent to what they get from other people, other than they want to know that they're in total control.
Wow.
So I think they vary. So and I think it's good to say that, because observing that someone likes to hold your hand or seems to like to hold your hand does not rule out psychopathy. You see what I'm saying? And yet there are people who are psychopathic that the very thought of holding another person's hand is aversive to them. So, but they're not all like that. There seems to be variability amongst them in terms of, whether they like that or not.
But then again, there's also the possibility that, because my ex-husband just loved to hold my hand, but I think that was part of the seduction. I don't know if he truly wanted it or not. It was just what he wanted to do to get me under his control.
Right. So that could have been classically conditioned in him too, that he associated holding your hand with having control over you. And so he enjoyed that behavior, So I don't know that it matters how, but we know that he wasn't averse to it, because he probably never did anything he was averse to.
Correct.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
So it was at least neutral for him. So we can't use, so I'm reminding you, remember when they came out with that, they were the proposed language in the DSM was going to be expression of love is rare. And we went, oh my gosh, that's going to set us back 30 years if they adopt this. And thank goodness they didn't.
Right. Because sociopaths quickly learn that when they say, I love you, they get what they want. So they say it a lot.
Right.